kindly permit me to proceed quickly on the established protocol, which has been very well laid out. And I must start by commending CAM for what is novel. I do not recall ever attending a launch of an idea or a product which has been so well tested on the market for at least 7 years before they decide to do a launch. That speaks volumes. And those who belong to my class, the political class, we have a lot to learn from CAM. Our sword cuttings and our launches, the grandiose nature. We are not even sure about the model, how it will be implemented. In some instances, we even appoint a chief executive of a port which is in the skies. And we hope that because of how grand the sword cutting ceremony is, and for this, all of us, NPP, NDC, CPP, PNC, all of us, we are very guilty, and we have to come to CAM to learn from CAM. And in all sincerity, I've been experimenting quite a bit with what CAM has done today in my own constituency, in my own small way, where I very much under-promise and try to over-deliver. And I just outdoor interventions without the usual, hype. And I noticed that works better. I've been asking myself, how come we have not realized that all these years? Because you take the people by surprise and they see that whilst they were not hearing from you, you were really thinking about them. And you have put a lot of thought into what is now before them. And that really works. So some of these notions that we have inherited, probably from pre-colonial era, that there has to be a lot of pomp and circumstance even before things take off. I am glad that this evening we all gathered here know that this CAM initiative will work because it is already working, and so we can be part of this success. So I really want to salute the team for this initiative, the Center for Outreach, Mentorship and Empowerment. As our distinguished guest speaker has said, this is an intervention which is long overdue. And we all must invest in this to make it work. As he said, what is holding us back is leadership. And leadership itself on this continent must be redefined. And one of the things that I will personally be looking forward to is that CAM will redefine our concept of leadership. On this continent, leadership is seen as doing the people a favor. It's not seen as a duty. It is not seen as a calling where you must really impact. It's not seen as more action, doing than talking. And the whole mindset around leadership certainly must change. I had a shock of my life when, as a 29-year-old Deputy Minister for Information, I was invited by the West Africa Students Union to Kaduna, Nigeria. And when I arrived, it was clear that there was something wrong. I just wasn't welcome. So I reached out to Daniel Onje, the president of WASU to find out why, the hesitancy and all of that. And he said, you know what? The student leaders don't believe that you are a deputy minister because you came alone. They can't see your bodyguard, they can't see security, you even ask us to pick you up, they don't see the embassy vehicles. And I thought that going to Kaduna is far away from Lagos or Abuja, where our missions are. And WASU, when I was NUC's president, we were envious of the Nigerian student leaders because they had very minted vehicles, Mercedes-Benz, with the number plate NANS1, the National Association of Nigerian Students. So I said, look, even in Ghana as deputy minister, I was using some Camry I inherited, so I can make do with your car, so pick me up. And suddenly, the students thought that I was some imposter. They really didn't believe that. And that's our notion of leadership on this continent. Even now, they invite you to events, and if you just walk in casually and they don't see you with a lot of security and you are not very pompous and you don't have PAs and special assistants, advanced team, sniffing around to be sure that it's a safe environment before you get in, then they are not too sure that you are worth the position that you are occupying. So the whole concept about leadership should be about humility. The most humble people. It's great to be humble, and it takes a lot of greatness to exhibit humility. Everybody can show off, and everybody can be pompous, and everybody can hide all kinds of superficial things to try to leave some impression which does not last. But it takes real great people who nobody about, who have their compass around them, to be humble, to be down to earth, and to listen to the people, and to design interventions that are from the people and that make impact. The other thing I would like to see come do is to teach young people to be compassionate. I think compassion is integral. It should be at the center. You cannot be a leader in a community. When people argue that being a parliamentarian, your constitutional function is to be a lawmaker, is to make laws. So why bother? But how can you be living in North Home with the people? And there are bright children, students who have straight A's. They have no means, no assistance anywhere. Our support systems in this country, in this part of the continent, we've deliberately made it weak so that there will be patronage and it will be whom you know. So it's only those who are known who are assisted. And now it's who knows you and all of that. How can you live in that community without having scholarship schemes? How can you live in a community where the only district hospital, by the time you became MP, has no incubators, has no suction machines, has no cervical cancer screening machines, and yet these departments exist in name? You have a NICU and all of that. Without these basic and precious lives will be dying. Yes, it's not part of your core mandate. It's not in the Constitution. It's not spelled out in black and white. But you must be compassionate. You must understand that you are not there because you are doing people a favor. If you didn't run for that office, somebody else will run for it and probably even get better votes than you got. So solve the problems. Be a solution, and don't rather compound the problems that you meet. So compassion certainly should be at the center of our work. And then, as I prepare to hand over the podium, activism. Honestly, I think that as a continent, as young people on this continent, our tolerance threshold is simply unacceptable. And check our history. Throughout history, There were those who had profuse tolerance for what we will all describe today as grave violations of our dignity as black people, of our human rights. Take colonialism. There were those who thought that we can fight it within the shortest possible time. And then there were those led by the Osajifo Dr. Kwame Nkrumah who thought that it was totally unacceptable and must be defeated now. Take African Union, the African Union integration. And I salute the special guest of honor, the guest speaker, for emphasizing unity. The reason why the African Union agenda has still not been met is because the Morovia group, the Casablanca group, those who thought that it should happen with time, and we are tolerating it. A continent of 1.2 billion people, we don't have a common market. We trade with the Europeans, with the Asians, with the Americans, more than we trade amongst ourselves. It's less than 15%. Intra-Africa trade. How can we develop, how can we create opportunities for our people and build an economy that delivers prosperity to our people? So I will appeal to you that don't become another armchair body. You can affect change by taking the activist path. And it doesn't make you lawless. It does not make you rancorous. But it simply says that this is unacceptable and we want to be part of the solution. And so as you had young African students like Kwame Nkrumah, Nnamdi Azikiwe, Kofi Appiah, J.B. Dankwa come together, the great Manchester Conference in 1945, to say that yes, as young people, we do not think that this whole colonialist experiment is acceptable. That even though we don't have the means, we don't have the resources, we will come together and put together a framework that will lead to the continent that we want to see, the Africa that we envisage. I will plead with Kam that please let us not be comfortable in our comfort zones. What social media has done is that it has given us a lot of false sense of freedom and airing our views and putting out what we believe to be. But beyond that, we must roll up our sleeves. We must get into the trenches. And we must build the continent that we want to see. So activism is really important. And I will appeal to you to be an activist group that is seen and heard, effecting the changes that you want to see. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, you do know that certainly, as we are trained in Parliament, I will not take my seat without having a rebuttal to our special guest of honor, Mr. David Ofosu-Dotte, who I respect very, very much. He had a lot of wise nuggets for us. Except one matter, which I must rebut with all the force at my command. I take the view that there is already too much power invested in African politicians by the constitutions that they operate. And we cannot have the corporate arrangement where when a managing director or a CEO is selected or appointed, everybody else goes to keep quiet and wait their turn for the CEO to retire from office. Can you imagine what will happen in this continent if, with the kind of constitutional arrangements we have, the power that politicians wield, if we do not have an opposition that is vibrant. And I take the view that we are not even vibrant enough. We are not strong enough to take them on. Yes, it should not be divisive. It should not be unconstructive. But there must certainly be countervailing forces, as Thomas Hobbes calls it, as Jean-Jacques Rousseau calls it. Those countervailing forces, which must be equal power, checking each other, is very, 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 very important. If not, we will have very wild horses with so much power on the loose, and we will regret it. We will totally regret it. And it must be seen when we are in power as NDC. I will not deny that, right? Because sometimes you don't know what power does to you. And power sometimes can get into the heads of very good people, and you wonder how come they are trying to implement the policies that they are implementing. Can you imagine if we didn't have a strong opposition at the time, led by the Venerable Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as he was at the time, who led the Komi-Preku demonstration and stopped VAT in its original format? Yes, I'm NDC, but I'll be honest to admit that at the time, when it was first introduced, it was not well thought through. And even as student activists at the time, we fought it. And that is how we managed to get VAT redirected to focus on education, leading to the establishment of the GET Fund, the Ghana Education Trust Fund Board. All of us helped to build it with the countervailing forces that were at our disposal. The average for middle-level income countries is 11.5% according to the World Bank and the IMF. Germany is doing 11.4%. How well are we using the taxes that we are collecting? The Auditor General's report, 12.8 billion cedis wasted in 2020 alone. PIAC report, 1.2 billion cedis of our oil revenues cannot be accounted for. You cannot have this situation and say that the opposition should just pipe low, chill, and let's allow the CEO to take control of the ship. Maybe I may not have understood him well, but even in the corporate arena, they just do not allow the CEOs to do whatever they want. They have very high standards. The boards are strict. I was saddened at what CNN did to Chris Cuomo a few days ago. But that is their standard. They will protect their brand. Here in Africa, I've talked earlier about how leadership is perceived. And I don't know if it's from our culture or our heritage of chieftaincy. You become president and you are a chief, you are a king. People can't. And where is the board in a democracy? Council of State was supposed to help somehow, but the Supreme Court has ruled that even the advice is not binding. The president can ignore the advice of the Council of State. So we rather need a stronger opposition, and we need our constitution to even be reworked and retweaked so that we will have more of equal power, so that in the final analysis, everybody's power will be checked. The power really belongs to the people, not those who are elected to just be caretakers in political office. So we wish Camp very, very well, ladies and gentlemen. And one of the things I like about your event, unlike another event I was at earlier in the day, that I don't see very huge collection bowls and where you want to squeeze every blood out of us. But it doesn't mean that our support should only be by word of mouth. They will need material support. So our appeal to all of us that let us do very well to support come not only by our physical presence and prayers, but a lot of the noble objectives they have can only be achieved if they have a very strong muscle, financially and intellectually. And so all of us should support them in the ways that we can, so that they will send us to the promised land. I remain very optimistic about this continent, particularly about this generation of Africans who are not accepting the status quo. And anytime you follow the youth social media, Fix the Country and all of that, you can tell that the youth are demanding higher standards. They want to see a new breed of leaders, and they themselves want to be part of the change. And there can only be hope for this continent. That old narrative will change, and we shall reclaim our glorious days, where civilization will come back to where it all began. May the good Lord bless camp. May the good Lord bless all your efforts, and may this initiative remain truly God's will, as is the name of the founder. Thank you very much.